As far as I'm concerned, this is the official release for Age of Sigmar. Yeah, it's 2nd edition, and it's the 3rd General's Handbook, but I'm calling it release. Actual Age of Sigmar released 3 years ago was, for all intents and purposes, alpha. It didn't have points, you couldn't play a fair game, they had these silly role-playing rules that were stupid, a lot of stuff was broken, it was alpha. Most everyone hated it and stayed far away, and it wasn't just because they were salty about Warhammer Fantasy Battles being retired. It was because the game was shit, and just not worth playing. The first General's Handbook came out 6 months later, and I consider this beta, because it was the first playable incarnation of Age of Sigmar. It was the one with points, which wargames need. Otherwise, you're just sort of pushing models around and doing fucking random stuff. And at that point, like, what's the point? With 2nd edition, we finally have a complete releasable game. It's a proper full release. They kept their promise. They said the rules you needed to at least play the game would always be free. And that's true. All the War Scrolls are free from their website. All the points are free on their War Builder website. The 18 pages of core rules to play the game are free in a bunch of different places, on their website, on the app, whatever. And so is all the FAQs and errata. So yes, you can play Age of Sigmar pretty well for free. So what is the core book? Why buy the core book? Well, for a sense of context and an understanding about what Age of Sigmar and the world actually is. I mean the actual realms. What all the armies are, who everyone is, what's going on, what the story is. In a sense of immersion. Dude, the core book is like 320 pages long, and what, 50 of them are rules? There's over 200 pages of story, backgrounds, history, maps, descriptions of what all the races and all the armies are, what they do, what they look like, full color illustrations that are great, unlike the deviant art quality shit they peddled out originally. I mean, they went from this to this. It is an improvement. So you also have the General's Handbook 2018, which is the 120 pages of more specific rules that you'll need to play the game properly, that was going to come in the core book, but they split it up. And a lot of people are wondering why they split it up, but I actually like this. You buy the core book if you give a shit about all of the reasons and context and history and art and all that stuff. The stuff that people really wanted, and people really made fun of for not being there. Well, here you go. And if you only care about playing the game, you can skip it and just go straight to the GHB. Also released as Malign Sorcery. Now everything in here is optional, but it seems like people are universally adopting at least the Endless Spells and Realm Artifacts, which are the two most exciting things in there, so I'm pleased. Like, if you were on the fence about getting into Age of Sigmar because of some of the early horror stories you heard from a few years ago, chances are it's sweet now, and this is the time to get into the game, in my opinion. Like, it's been a week. I've played 3 full games of Age of Sigmar 2nd edition, and I've played 3 games of what we had been spoiled on for 2nd edition a few weeks ago, and I've been having a blast. So my past few shows leading up to this release have been, for the most part, kind of negative, and I don't want to be accused of being one of those YouTube guys who just complains about everything, so let me tell you how sweet this shit is. So even though you're supposed to start broad and move in to specifics, I'm going to start with specifics. I'm going to start specifically with the subtle changes that I think have really improved the game from a gameplay nuts and bolts, like at the table perspective. First of all, the universal battle plan objective rules. This makes the process of figuring out what actually you have to do when you select a battle plan so much faster when you're setting up the table. They finally put true measurements all over the place, so you don't have to infer stuff with math. For any objective on any battle plan, it's you have the most models within 6. At the end of a turn, you control it. And you control it until somebody else takes it away from you. Like, that's so much simpler. With the old battle plans, it seemed like everyone had random different ways you can capture stuff. Some of them were 3 inches away. Some of them are 6 inches away. Some of them are more models around it. Some of them are a hero around it. Some of them were more models around it, but a unit of 20, even if it didn't have more models around it than another one, auto-captured it anyway, and some didn't. This way, everything is 6 inches away, more models, end of a turn, you got it. There are some battle plans that change this, but they don't change it in subtle, weird ways, like you can't retreat onto it and units of 20 capture. It's very obvious. You know, you have a battle plan where only heroes capture. You have a battle plan where only wizards and people with magic items can capture. And so it's like, if you're capturing with models in any way, it's more within 6. If you're not capturing with models, and it's instead like heroes or something, then it details it. And it saves so much time when you're starting to play a game. I'm probably spending too much time explaining this, but for somebody who plays a lot of games, it's so nice to just crack open Open War and be like, all right, here's what the table is, here's where the objectives are, we know there's a default solution, that took 30 seconds, let's go. Instead of halfway through the game being like, oh wait, is this one of the ones that I control until I leave, or one of the ones that I control until someone captures? And can I retreat onto it? And just like, it saves so much time not having to reference shit like that. Second, pile-in is streamlined. Pile-in is faster now. You don't lock models in for touching base to base. You just have to end up as close or closer to the nearest model. And so instead of looking at every single model in a giant mess and being like, okay, this guy, and this guy are locked in, but then these 7 is just, everyone can swivel a little bit, you push them up, let's go. For somebody who likes combos, me. And somebody who likes list building, me. 2nd edition is better than 1st edition. There are so many little combos all over the place to find, and the addition of command points makes this awesome. Every turn you get a little poker chip on the side of your table there. You can use it around your heroes for any number of effects. You can get a bunch of them. You can stack command abilities, although they specifically went in and changed a bunch of war scrolls so that certain command abilities you can't spam because it would be ridiculous. For instance, the Marathi combo that I really hoped would get changed, and it did, so good. I'm pleased. That would have been no fun. Archon can still spam his, and I'm hoping that was just something they missed, and it'll be in the 2-week FAQ, but we'll see. Speaking of command abilities, the new Inspiring Presence is Battle Shock phase only and 1 turn only. And what this means is that massive regiments are much harder to keep alive, because they're going to start suffering from Battle Shock when people inevitably run out of command points. And so stuff dies more. And so stuff dying more makes for faster games. Games that you really feel like things are accomplished. And the faster your games go, the more chance you can play 2 in the same evening. Now obviously there's a limit to this. Now you don't want the game to just be like, I alpha strike you and you lose after 15 minutes and let's go, but I mean that's, for the most part, that's not what's happening. Although you have to be aware that with these new command ability combos, that is a real possibility, and so you need to build your lists with that in mind. But as far as metagames go, a little bit of dangerous early game combos are healthy for the meta. They keep people honest. They put that little fear in people of like, okay, you're playing Iron Jaws. How many command points are you going to start the game with? Oh, 5? Okay. All right, I see you. I see you. Okay. This is a concern. Oh yeah, the new terrain rules are so much better. They're faster to resolve. They're easier to remember what they are. You have to get closer to the terrain to gain their bonuses. And none of them are overpowered, nor have crippling downsides like they used to. I think it will turn a lot more people on to using terrain, which they should be. Without a lot of terrain, the game is way different, and I think worse. Also, you must attack with all of your guys. There's no more like deciding not to attack with your stuff to try to rob somebody of their war scroll ability that does something defensively. This also speeds up play, because there isn't a decision about, oh, am I not going to attack with this or am I not going to attack with that? You just attack. Let's keep it snappy here. Endless spells are awesome. They at the same time make the game more cinematic, as I mean that's what it was called. It's called the cinematic magic system, I think. And Having like giant jaws and big scything pendulums and flaming skulls and stuff on the battlefield looks sweet. Yes, they're dangerous. They're called predatory spells for a reason. They can bite back, but it actually makes for a pretty interesting decision tree when you're using them, when you're choosing whether or not to use them. As it stands, at the beginning of each battle round, the player whose turn it won't be right now gets to select the first one to move. This is like combat activation, so you activate one, they activate one, you activate one, etc. And so this makes for a pretty interesting interaction, I think. It also puts a little more decision making onto whether you should take the double turn or not, because if you do, then your opponent's going to be able to shove a purple sun up your ass, and that might be a problem. Maybe you don't want to take 2d6 mortal wounds on your monster. What it really is a little pushback for choosing such a powerful option as to take 2 turns in a row, which, you know, you kind of deserve. In GHB 16, in GHB 17, you had Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. Tier 4, technically, I guess. And Tier 1 is very competitive. You have all the tools to win. You're often in the top 10. Tier 2, viable. You have many of the tools to win, sometimes all of them, and with really tight list building and or tight play, you can hang. Tier 3, casual. As in, even if you optimize your list fully within the constraints of your army and allies, you cannot be good. So it's a game of dice, anything can happen. In a tournament, there aren't enough rounds to determine a proper winner. You can get lucky matchups. I'm not saying you can't. You often won't be able to beat Tier 1 or even Tier 2 lists in friendly games, in metas and against opponents who like to do more than just drink beer and push models around. And then there's Tier 4, which I only put in as a technicality, and it's armies that you can't even build, like Firebelly ogres who have 1 hero and no battle line, or Shadow Blades or something like that, like ally tier, we'll call that. But surprise, I tricked you, there's a 5th one, and that is S tier. And S tier is bullshit. You are so much better than everyone else that it's like you're not even playing the same game. In a sense, you're following rules of the Age of Sigmar game, and they're largely ignoring wide swaths of the game because of how good their abilities are. I'm thinking of Tzeentch, that got nerfed 3 or 4 times over the course and maintained the most consistent top 10s the entire time. I'm thinking of some of the Stormcast lists that were so cheesy they actually got FAQ'd to not really work anymore. I'm thinking of Fire Slayers if they got to go first, where they would just plop 120 dwarves on top of all the objectives and then pass saving throws for 2 hours and win on points. I'm thinking of KO, that kill every hero in your entire army on turn 1, and if you're an army that is, and if you're some horde army that can deal with that, well then you win, and if you're everybody else, then you automatically lose. Everybody in S tier got cut down to size in 2nd edition. Some more brutally than others. Tzeentch just changed a lot. I think they'll still be very good. I mean, they worship change, so they should like this. All the points on everything they do went up hugely. You know, the average change host army probably costs 2,500 points now. But that's how good it was. Fate dice are still completely overpowered, and so they still have the, you know, easy mode kind of bumper bowling tactics. Get out of jail free cards if they mess up. So I'm sure they'll still be fine. Fire Slayers were perfectly costed to do exactly what they're doing, and really all they got were a few point hikes here and there, and it's caused the wheels fell off. They got to go back to the drawing board. Whatever they come up with will be strong, but probably not amazing. AKA, so maybe they're fair, who knows. KO they took out behind the shed and fucking shot. Sorry, you got the Beast Claw treatment. So my heartfelt condolences to Karaudran Overlord's players. I know how you feel. I'm sending my thoughts and prayers. If it's any consolation, you are a proper new Age of Sigmar release. instead of like Beastclaw was, which is just sort of repackaged Warhammer Fantasy Battle stuff. And so Games Workshop is probably not okay with you being absolutely dumpster tier, so maybe they won't leave you to languish forever like they have with Beastclaw. We'll see. Who will be the new S tier? Who will, you know, ignore main mechanics and main ideas about the entire game and just be unbeatable forever? I don't know. Hopefully no one. Hopefully there's no such thing. It's bad for the game. You know, you can't stop winners and losers. People eventually find out what's good. That's just how it is. But, boy, it would be nice if they were a little closer together. And any army, no matter what, has a decent shot at being competitive with some smart list building and good play. Call me an idealist. So speaking of keeping it positive, let's do something we haven't done before. This week's list of the week is not some broken combo or silly interaction example like I normally do, but a good old-fashioned fun list. Remember fun? It's but a distant memory. Actually, not really, because I've had fun in every game of 2nd edition I've played so far. Some people have reached out to me. Let's see, Jville in the comments. Thoughts on Gutbusters this edition? Dude reached out to me on TGA community forum, Gurk Glot, and he's like, yo, I like your channel. Can you give me a Gutbusters list because I'm thinking about playing them? So of course, let's go. This week's list is called Busting for Fun and Profit. Now we're still optimizing the list. It's just a fun one. Leaders, Tyrant, my boy. This dude costs 160 points, and to say he swings above his weight class is an understatement. First things first, he has a command ability that's good. Bully of the 1st degree, you choose a Gutbusters unit within 6 inches, the unit suffers a D3 mortal wounds, but does not have to take battle shock tests for the rest of the game, while the Tyrant is still alive, caveat. This is awesome. Using this on 60 grots for 270 points is real good. Now the dude I was making this list for hates grots. He thinks they look stupid, and he doesn't want to play with 60 tiny idiots. He wants to play with 9-foot-tall sumo wrestlers with sledgehammers. A gentleman and a scholar. So no problem. We do it to 12 ogres instead. But back to Tyrant War Scroll. 8 wounds, move 6, save 4 up. At the beginning of the game, you roll a die, and you get a random big name. Most of these are really good. If you roll a 1, he has 9 wounds instead of 8. If you roll a 2, you can add 1 to wound rolls for him in the combat phase, and this is really important later. You're going to want this one. Fate Seeker makes his save 3 up instead of 4 up, massive buff. Longstrider has a move 8 instead of 6, this is solid. Giant Breaker, if any of the Tyrant's weapons targets a monster, add 1 to its damage. Not very good, and on a 6 you choose the result. He's got 2 pistol shots at 12 inches, 4s and 3s rend 1 damage D3, it's okay. And then he has choices of melee weapons, either clubs, a massive ogre club, or the Great Gut Gouger. You take the Great Gut Gouger. Why? Because it's 3-inch range, you can reach over anybody's head and whack people with it. It only has 3 attacks. Hits on 3s, wounds on 3s, rend 2, damage 3. Any wound roll of 6 or more made with the Great Gut Gouger inflicts double damage, which is 6. And so that's okay, but pretty unlikely, unless we give him Might is Right for the command trait, so now he's doing 6 damage on 5s. And if you give him the artifact Gyre Strike from Gyran Realm artifact section, now he's doing 6 damage on 4s. And if you roll Brawler Guts, now he's doing 6 damage on 3s. This guy basically, I mean, even though it's only 3 attacks, this guy on average does 12 damage. It's sick. He is not for rushing headlong into battle. We want to keep him alive so that your ogres or grots, if you're playing a more optimized list, stay battle shock immune for as long as possible. He's for mid-game, like, you know, late turn 2, maybe turn 3, waltzing up and being the garbage man, and just taking out the trash, like doing 12 damage, just straight killing a hero or a monster, or an entire squad. Then we have 3 Butchers. Butchers are the only reason that Gutbusters is even remotely a playable army. They are that important. Butcher with Cauldron. These guys have 7 wounds, 6 move, 5 up save. Their attacks are god-awful. They have Stump Blades, 2d6 attacks, 4s and 3s, no Ren, damage 1. Statistically speaking, against a 4-up armor save, they do 0 or 1 damage. They are not for melee combat. And they're not really for casting spells. I mean, they can cast spells. They know Mystic Shield, Arcane Bolt, and Voracious Maw. Arcane Bolt sucks now, Mystic Shield sucks now. And Voracious Maw is on the low side of okay. Casting value 7. Pick an enemy within 18, it takes D3 mortal wounds, and then you roll a die. On a 4-up, you repeat the process. And this can keep going, but in my personal experience, I tend to pass this every other turn and do 2 mortal wounds, and that's it. So, you know, your mileage may vary. You're not here for magic. You're here for the Great Cauldron. So yes, it has to be random, and yes, it has to randomly screw you over because destruction. So if you roll a 1, you suffer D3 mortal wounds. Okay. On a 2, he heals a D3 wounds, and all other friendly ogre models within 14 also heal a single wound. This is all the other butchers. This is probably some of your units. This is really good. AoE healing is very strong, even if it's just 1. And then there's, if you roll a 3 or a 4. This is why he's here. This is why playing with any less than 3 butchers is pure madness. Spine marrow. If you roll a 3 or a 4, select an ogre unit within 14 inches. Until your next hero phase, you can add 1 to all hit rolls made by that unit in the combat phase. This fixes ogre's war scrolls, which are bad because everybody hits on 4s and so they miss constantly. Now they hit on 3s. This changes the math hugely. It makes Stonehorns like heat-seeking missiles of death. It makes Iron Guts so brutal. It makes your standard ogres into killers. This is why he's here. Yes, and they stack. And on a 5 to 6 Bone Crusher, this thing almost never matters, but roll a dice for each enemy unit within 7 inches of the butcher. On a 4 or more, the unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. You're almost never in range for this, but who knows, sometimes you are. You play 3 of these, and so you have 3 chances at rolling a 3 or 4, which is a pretty good odds. Sometimes you get 2, or even 3. This is the core of synergy around which your army is built. Also gives you access to unbinds, it lets you attempt to dispel endless spells, and it gives you access to endless spells of your own. That does it for heroes. Before we move on to units, I'll just talk about what I'm not taking. I'm not taking Grots, even though they're probably the ideal choice for the army. As I mentioned before, 60 wounds for 270 points is awesome. And I really can't stress enough just how bad their war scroll is. These dudes are hitting on 5s, they're like wounding on 6s, they basically don't have a save, their bravery's terrible. It doesn't matter. It's 60 wounds that's battle shock immune. You can bubble wrap your stuff. That's what you really want. Or you can leave them in the backfield to force your opponent to chew through 60 wounds worth of idiots to get to your objectives. Iron Blaster. It looks awesome, but boy does it suck. They reduced its points slightly. In the new edition, it still sucks real bad. I refer you to my previous video where I talk about one attack that seems good is almost always bad, and this one attack hits on 4s, so it doesn't even seem good, and it's not. Grot's Scrap Launcher, same thing, sucks real bad. Gorgers are okay. Their deep strike ability is kind of nice, but they are too expensive for what they do. And as far as allies go, Thunder Tusks, which are a tempting option to ally into a Gutbusters list, but one I feel is wrong. Thunder Tusks will simply just get charted into bad damage on turn 1. And now you have this 340 point turd that's no good after turn 2. You want staying power and you want stuff that's going to always be good. And not powerful right away stuff with an Achilles heel that almost every army can take advantage of. Maneaters become a decent option for allies now because they natively hit on 3s, which is very good. And you can select some of their cool abilities. They have pistol shots. These guys are pretty good. It's just that for our allies, we want to solve a problem in the army. The problem Gutbusters don't have is, man, we just don't have enough 6-inch move melee dudes. Your problem is you have nobody really fast that can smash crap with the ogre keyword. And so we have Stonehorn Beast Riders. These guys kind of suck, but not with +2 to hit they don't. Why am I choosing Stonehorn Beast Riders instead of a Huskguard on Stonehorn? Because you can't give allies artifacts. And if a Huskguard on Stonehorn does not have an artifact, fun fact, Beast Riders do more damage, statistically. This guy is the long-ranged that you wish you had. He is also a big distraction. You load him up with hit buffs and fire him like a missile into whatever, and he will kill it. From there, he becomes a big distraction for your opponent to waste time trying to kill, whilst you try to heal him with endless spells and run your other guys up to pound town. He is for the early game, and he is expendable. Just make sure that you earn your points back and observe proper target priority. Then we have 2 3-man units of Lead Belchers. I like Lead Belchers more than Ogres in almost every situation, especially in minimum strength units. Lead Belchers have the same stats as Ogres, move 6, 5 up save, 6 bravery, 4 wounds. They have 1 less attack per model, but the attack has rend, so I like it better. And they have these Lead Belcher guns for some decent, although short range. They have this Thunderous Blast of Hot Metal ability, which says if they didn't move and nobody's around them, they get D6 attacks rather than D3. This isn't something to stick your neck out and try to get. I mean, you should almost never sacrifice positioning for this. Always go where your model... Always put them where they need to go, and always move them if they should move. Consider the D6 attacks just sort of a nice bonus instead of something to really, you know, trade and try to get. They're just good all-arounders for 140-point battle line unit. Instead of 60 grots plus some other stuff, we have a block of 12 ogres. At 400 points, this is a decent wounds to point ratio for these big dudes. Making them battle shock immune is pretty strong. Great Beast Skull makes extra units run away if they're going to on a 6. You can reroll dice rolls of 6 when taking battle shock tests for them with a tribal banner. And Lookout Grot is low-key great. You roll a dice whenever you're hit by a wound or mortal wound from a ranged weapon, and on a 6 it's ignored. This is sweet. They have the option for Iron Fists, but these are a really bad choice. Each time you make a successful save roll of 6 or more, they reflect a mortal wound. But it's 6 or more, not a natural dice roll of 6, so if you're being attacked by Rend, it doesn't do anything. And everybody uses Rend, pretty much, so don't take Iron Fists. Especially now that you can't Mystic Shield them to get them a better, you know, chance at proccing this ability. And if 12 ogres on 40 mil bases think they can get fully within terrain, they're dreaming. Take the double weapons. It lets you reroll hit rolls of 1. Which, when you hit on 4s, hey, you gotta take anything you can get. You also have Bull Charge, which lets you reroll wound rolls of 1 if you made a charge, and if the unit has 10 or more models, which it starts with, you can reroll all failed wounds. So actually these guys, there's some good stuff to them. They're just kind of outclassed by grots as meat shields. Although they are meat shields that can do some damage. And then we have the Iron Guts, who just went down in points, and I think are still too expensive, but you gotta take what you can get. Run 6 of these guys, 9 in the grot version. Yes, that sounds like a lot, 9 Iron Guts, but it's the way. But you want as many to survive the run across the battlefield as you can. 4 wounds, move 6, 4 up save. 3 attacks, 4s and 3s, rend 1, damage 3. Put some hit buffs on these guys, and they will take you to Pound Town. Early game, Stonehorn gets the hit buffs. Mid game, Iron Guts gets them. Late game, whoever's still alive. And, well, we got 3 wizards. Let's throw in an endless spell, huh? Emerald Life Swarm. Yes, 60 points is too much for a D3 healing. But you know what? You're elite, you need the healing, you gotta do it. So pros and cons. Con, you are elite, and so mortal wounds hurt you more than armies with tons of guys. Also, you are elite, and being elite is just strictly worse than being Horde in most situations in this game. You only have 2.5 real hammer units. The Iron Guts, the Stonehorn, and the Tyrant, and I count him as a half because he's more of a late game play. And so if one goes down early and the other gets tar pitted, you'll have an uphill battle for the fight. Similarly, you don't have a large number of units, like not number of models, but number of units, and so spreading around the battlefield with useful guys to project power can be a little tricky. Finally, you don't have long-range sniper fire or mortal wounds or teleporting or flying or like cheeky, cheaty-face stuff to do as far as movement is concerned. To take out enemy heroes or bubble-wrapped or screened stuff that your opponent is protecting. Also, the butcher buffs are random, and so you could just like choke on their rolls and not get anything useful. Also, most of your spells aren't very good. Pros, real fun. Lots of stuff to do in every phase, especially the hero phase. You don't much care if the enemy spellcasters present like a wall of unbinds and you can't get any spells through, because it's really about your butcher pot ability, and your spells are just sort of a nicety. You have a better chance of winning match play battle plans at the local shop than Beastclaw, with the added bonus that no one will whine about Thundertusks. But you still get to play with the most fun Beastclaw unit, which is the Stonehorn, a little school bus that drives around just crashing into stuff. It's so fun. You also present a diverse number of targets that your opponent must decide which to attack first for target priority. You have 3 butchers, which are sort of your synergistic package that your opponent wants to kill. You have this tyrant that he wants to get rid of so that battle shock goes away. You want to attack the Iron Guts. You want to attack the Stonehorn. Like, all of these guys have bullseyes on their head, and your opponent probably can't snipe them all. Con. Some armies can kill them all. What are you going to do? And pro, armies without a lot of options and cheaty face powers have to play smarter and more tactically than armies that do have it. And so you'll definitely improve your fundamentals playing this army. And it will present a decent challenge for improvement, as opposed to some of the more training wheels infinite options armies out there. And being the underdog with surprise heat is fun. Oh, I forgot to mention the Stonehorn should always have Blood Vulture, because like there's no comparison. You're often running and charging, and you can release the Vulture because it's an ability, plus it's a guaranteed mortal wound, as opposed to a 4-up roll on some ranged weapon that doesn't have rend. Like, there's like an 80% chance that their ranged weapons don't do damage against a 4-up save, so just take the mortal wound. Oh, corrections, caveats, and comments. Ooh, that alliteration. On the banishment spell from last show, no, you can't set up your opponent's units out of coherency. So rip me. That combo doesn't work, thankfully. Although banishment is still cancer. I came down a little hard on the playtesters last show in my offhanded comments about them missing all this super obvious rules exploits. But it could very well be that they're not given a finalized version of the rules to playtest with. It could be they're given just sort of approximations, like this thing basically does this, just play with it. And so, you know, in that case, they weren't given the tools to be able to detect all these problems. And so let's show a little deference there, I suppose. Azoxy Strobin had a super long comment that I didn't want to just respond to with big paragraphs, and I said I'd approach it on the show. So here it is. He says, it's quite obvious that when a predatory spell ends within 6 inches of a portal, it only goes through once. It's obvious that that's what they intend, although that's not what the words say, and so that was my whole point. Their words should say what they intend. In fact, all these broken combos you and several others, you weren't the first to spot these, have found will be FAQ'd rapidly. I hope they are. That was the point of the show. The point of the show was not, these are broken combos you can lose all your friends with. It was, please fix these. Whether the answers go into the comprehension is hard or the are you being obtuse on purpose section of the FAQ will be interesting. I just think they should write their rules better. Games Workshop don't write tight rules. That isn't how they work. It should be how they work. It's embarrassing that it isn't how they work, to be honest. They expect players to be decent to each other, to have fun together, and not attempt to win at all costs. Well, they can expect that, but write better rules too. The guy with the unkillable Stardrake combo at Adepticon who curb stomped you, he wasn't polite just for the sportsmanship score. It's because we're supposed to play nice. It's part of the game. Hey, I beat that guy first, even though it does... I know it doesn't matter for the sake of this argument, but I beat that guy. It was a minor victory, but whatever. The dude I got curb stomped by was Nice Painter Stormcast Man, who double turned me and rolled fucking hot. Not salty. Yeah, and for instance, I gave this guy my max sportsmanship score, because he was my most... He was polite, he played tactically, he had a great list, probably the hardest list, probably the most whack list that I played against all day, and he played very well the whole time. It was just It was just super enjoyable to play against him, to be honest. It's nice to see you're still learning how to play. Ogre Kingdoms might be good one day. What are Ogre Kingdoms? Is that from some old game? We're talking about Age of Sigmar here. Trollface, sorry. Just having a bit of fun, apologies. GW specifically said, use as many command abilities as you want. This is how they want it to be. They even talked about making that one turn where you spend all of them to get a massive all-in turn. So yes, they do know. Well, okay, if they intended that, how come they just added an FAQ to 100 War Scrolls saying that you couldn't do that to those, you know? Like, they definitely didn't intend on it for all those if they're changing them 1 week after release. And a lot of the time, it's not obvious what they intend. It's a guessing game. That's sort of the problem. Do they want 16 damage grots, or did they just forget to FAQ it and not notice that it was a thing? Is it okay for 30 bonus inch range on Archon's spells and everybody around him? Maybe, maybe not. Did they intend on making all of the Everchosen battalions basically functionally unplayable? Or were they trying to fix a battalion that featured a bunch of Stormcast and a bunch of Sylvaneth, and they splash-killed some Everchosen thing that they weren't even thinking about? We don't know. The ambiguity puts an unnecessary burden on the players to figure out what is in the designer's head and what they intended. You wouldn't have to guess at what they intend if they took rules writing a little more seriously and hired me. But maybe they won't hire me because I make fun of them sometimes. Sorry about the videos. I mean, so far they've done a lot of things differently than they have in the past with staggeringly successful results. For instance, community outreach. Maybe it's time to do the same thing with rules writing. They've made good strides in this direction as well for 2nd edition, actually. Even though I poke fun about it, you know, with videos, but they really have improved greatly in this respect. For instance, that core rule that they added, that currently is sort of drama-inducing in the, you know, rules answers style sub-community of the game. The one that says, most War Scrolls include one or more abilities that can be used by the War Scrolls models during a game of Warhammer Age of Sigmar. Abilities take precedence over the core rules. A lot of people... Okay, there's like this thread in TGA that says this is the worst rule in the game. There's a lot of people who don't like this because it functionally makes a lot of other rules in the core rules not rules at all. For instance, the extra attacks proccing extra attacks rule in the core rules that says they don't. Well, the Ripredactor War Scroll says they do. And so because of this rule, the Ripredactor War Scroll works how it says it does. Like, you produce extra attacks. The rule in the core rule that says you can't modify the priority roll. Well, there's an Everchosen battalion and Fatesworn and stuff that says it can. And so clearly they don't want you modifying the priority roll. But you can because of this rule that says that War Scrolls override core rules. And so I like this because it forces them to go in and actually fix problems that they got themselves into by writing irresponsible rules on abilities. This is good. It's going to force them to update the game and think twice about writing bullshit rules in the future. They're going to have to go back to the Ripredactyl War Scroll and say whether it works or not. They're going to have to go back to the Fatesworn and say whether it works or not. Like, if they don't want you doing something, they shouldn't write abilities that let you do that thing. And so, moving forward, they probably won't. And this is a great thing. Look, if they don't want you modifying the priority roll, don't write War Scrolls to let you do it. Like, you made this bed, now you gotta sleep in it. That's my opinion on that one. Fix the War Scrolls. I mean, you don't have to be the gaming company that everybody makes fun of for having more contradictions than the Bible, you know? Like, you've made great strides in improvement in a bunch of areas where you had historically been lacking, we'll say. Community outreach, for instance. You know, rules are the next step. Oh boy, I'm getting a little negative here, and I'd like to keep it positive so that I still have a decent shot of getting hired by Games Workshop to help write their rules, so... Oh, Azoxystrobin goes on to mention that his comments must have seemed pretty vitriolic, but actually it's the internet, etc., etc. No, I didn't take them as such. I just thought it would be a great springboard for a discussion that I wanted to talk about, so don't feel like I'm yelling at him. I'm not. Everybody's doing videos on winners and losers. And it's way too early to talk about stuff like that, so let's talk about stuff like that. But we'll do it quick like, hot take action. Idneth, probably the same. Stormcast, rules facelift was actually much needed and great. I know everyone's gonna yell at me for saying that, but having to roll to see if your guys come down from the heavens is fucking AIDS. And I'm glad they fixed that. There's a lot of little War Scroll tweaks. They have wizards now. They're better. Seraphon, big winner. They were already great. They were low-key great. Like, not too many people were doing it, but they had all the tools to really succeed. And right towards the tail end of 17, they started to pick up steam as more and more people realized that, you know, their shit was legit. And they got buffed. So, Daughters of Cain, winner. Mostly because of Marathi. She was really good before, and she got unnecessarily buffed hugely by magic being so good in Lookout Sir. So yeah, winner for Daughters of Cain. Kraden Overlords. I won't talk about them very much so as not to twist the knife, but big loser. They got the Beastclaw treatment, which was the 1-2 punch of getting directly nerfed and indirectly nerfed by the game rules changing. I'm not sure you can salvage what they're doing without going in deep and just giving them, like, a revised battle tome, a la Stormcast. I think they need it badly. Sylvaneth, winners. They have... Naurroot got buffed and is more playable now. Dreadwood Battalion is the secret hot tech. It's going to be great. Alariel's playable now. They're primed and ready for making use of endless spells. Winner. Fireslayers, loser of course, because the thing they were doing got nerfed, and it was the best thing that they were doing, and they didn't get anything new to do, so loser. As to how far down they fall, it remains to be seen. It's possible they'll be completely fine. We don't know yet. Fireslayers players, tell me. Is there some secret tech? Are you guys okay? Like, we'll see. I know they have to ally in their wizards, so that's not a good sign. Free people, basically the same, which means slight loser, I think. Dispossessed, winner. I think Dispossessed is an army you can legitimately play in Age of Sigmar now, instead of being a joke. I think Dispossessed players have to crack the code on what's the best ally to use, because the army list it's not complete. You're one of those armies that's missing key components and you need to ally stuff in. You also don't have native wizards, and so you have to ally those in, and that's never a good sign. But it used to be real fucking bad, and now, you know, there's light at the end of the tunnel, so winner. Going to skip over minor shattered factions. Apologies. Let me know if you want me to talk about them, but there's like 10 of them, and, you know, I only have so much time. Mixed Order, you lost Skinks as battle line, so that sucks. And the Phoenix is a little more expensive, but you have more toys to play with, I think about the same. Blades of Corn, this might be a contested opinion, but actually about the same. They can use their summoning now, that's cool. They actually will get to in your average game. A lot of their foot heroes got buffed because of Lookout Sir, but then also their points went up. And their best battalion is no longer playable, so that's a huge minus. And they can't really play with wizards for the most part, and spells are a big deal. They got command abilities to combo with, although I don't think their combos are quite as good as some of the other armies, so I think about the same. Disciples of Tzeentch, if what you want to be doing with Tzeentch is what you used to be doing, then you're a huge loser, and it cannot work at all. You know, if you want to build the old lists, you're talking like 23, 24, 2,500 points. It's just not going to happen. But it's the God of Change. You guys will adapt. And from what I've been hearing from some of the Tzeentch channels is that they got some hot shit. and it's a pretty safe bet that they'll just be on top no matter what. With Fate dice and how oppressive their magic is, I just feel like it'd be really surprising if they weren't still on top, just in a different way, that's all. Maggotkin of Nurgle, winner. They were already really good. They got better. The only reason they would be a loser is if you used to be on Plague Touched Warband, which is no longer playable. Sorry, but nobody likes playing against it, and you know it. You know, you have to... And making your opponent, like, not want to hang himself is sort of an integral part of the game, so... Still, yeah, Nurgle, winner. Nurgle just sort of has it all. Slaanesh, loser. Got basically nothing. Their summoning mechanic is real bad. However, they're probably getting a Battle Tome soon, so we'll say loser, asterisk, see below. When the Battle Tome comes out, I'm sure they'll be a winner. Skaven Pestilence, winner. They were already very strong, it's just that no one wanted to paint 200 stupid-looking rats. Now they have to paint a little less. But they got buffed, so maybe it'll be more tempting now. Other Skaven, Bray herds, War herds, all the other Skaven clans, basically a loser. People were hoping for, you know, a unification of the clans and Bray and War herds and stuff, and it just didn't happen, so for now, loser. Mixed Chaos, winner. You kept your amazing command trait and got a lot more toys to play with. Legions of Nagash, winner. You were already great. Now you got a bunch of new toys to play with. You have command ability combos. You have awesome magic. You have excellent units. You have Nagash. Specifically, Nagash lists don't have 2 upper rolling 1s anymore. So a little bit loser. But you have so many more toys to play with that we'll call it even or better. Flesh Eater Courts. Winner, but probably still suck. Sorry. You got all your summoning back that you should have always had. But for the most part, you're summoning, like, really bad dudes. I haven't delved too much into what the changes mean for Flesh Eater Courts. Hopefully it proves me wrong. I'd like to see Flesh Eater Courts be really good. I just don't see it happening even with all your summoning shenanigans. But we'll see. Night Haunt. I haven't looked at all the spoilers yet. I'm sure it's amazing. Winner. Speaking of Iron Jaws, winner, winner, chicken dinner. Your command ability combos are amazing. And all your battalions are so trivially easy to qualify for that I'm, like, personally upset from a place of jealousy. Everything you fucking play with is battle line. That's bullshit. All your battalions just say, ugh, just take whatever. It's so fucking easy. You're gonna have a million command points, a bunch of artifacts, a bunch of combos. Shoutouts to Vince. Merry Christmas. You got exactly what you wanted, and now I'll say it. Iron Jaws, way better than Bone Splitters. Beast Claw, loser with an asterisk. Points went down a hair, but all the important nerfs that really crippled them are still around. And they have to ally in Wizards, again, which is never a good place to be. And if you're allying in Destruction Wizards, that's an even worse place to be. They don't have good command ability combos whatsoever. In fact, they have none. They can reroll charges, ooh, you know. However, that asterisk, see below, Realm Artifacts fixed how shitty the Beast Claw artifacts were. And so now you have access to good artifacts, which solves problem 1 of 7 with the army. And the points drop, although minor, does open up list building to be able to at least play with fun lists that lose to everybody, instead of can't even fit everything in lists that lose to everybody. So you at least got that going for you. Bone Splitters. It seems like loser, but people are in the garage tooling around with stuff. And so I'd just like to see what they come up with. The way some rules are currently written, you can do some sick shit. As to whether or not those will still be viable later, I'm not sure. First impression, big loser. Second impression, question mark. So, Grots of all types, winner. as long as they don't fix that one thing. And when the Battle Tome comes out, big winner. So, okay. And I talked about Gutbusters already, but they need a book, man. Give them a book. Give them Firebellies and Maneaters. You know, reassemble the clans. And Mixed Destruction. Winner. Gordrak is great. Magma Dragon is playable now. Grots have all sorts of cool little combos. You can do some cool stuff with Grand Alliance Destruction, even though your Allegiance abilities are still just embarrassingly bad. And I was very surprised to see them not make any of them any good still.